I just got to tell the people to keep their arms in the vehicle at all times and strap in because it's going to be a blast.
Hey, call it a KFC special. We're chicken winging it. Like, God bless the new normal.
From Rollo to Raymore, Leader to Lanigan, you're listening to the Lang LeBlanc Podcast, a part of the Saskatchewan Podcast Network. We're the weekly show chatting about the province, your Saskatchewan podcast, with Sasky guests. For a Sasky crowd, we fill you in on all things in the land of the living skies. I'm Brady Lang, and this is the 45th installment of the Lang LeBlanc Podcast, and this week, we're talking SJ with Jamie Neugebauer.
You know, I always joke, like, that's how I'm going to die, is climbing the ladder after the dunk. And I'm always, like, carrying, like, huge bags of gear and stuff. All the other broadcasters in the league, Marty and Rory and Benny Welchuk, these guys have their neat little briefcases, you know, that they carry off, like, these little European bags when they're little puppies into the other arm. They're like...
We would first like to acknowledge that this podcast is recorded, operated, and edited on Treaty 6 territory, Treaty 4 territory, and on the homeland of the Métis. We pay our respect to the First Nations and Métis ancestors of this place and reaffirm our relationship with one another. We'd also like to acknowledge a date that has passed by the publishing of this podcast, Remembrance Day. Every year on November 11th, we take a moment to remember those who have fallen, those who continue to fight, and those who fought for us over the years.
The views and opinions expressed on the Lang and LeBlanc podcast are solely those of the hosts, producers, and guests of the program. They in no way, shape, or form reflect those of any affiliates the presenters or guests represent.
Hey there, and welcome back to the Lang and LeBlanc podcast, and thank you for listening to the program. I'm Brady, currently in Saskatoon. Let's head over to Yorkton now to check in with the other half of the pod. How's it going today, Avery?
I didn't nap today, and I'm a little bit regretting it. So yeah, I should have napped today. I had very little time to myself, and I was like, you know what, we can take a few hours to myself, and that few hours to myself should have been spent sleeping. But that'll be okay. We'll make up for it tomorrow.
Well, I'm looking at the date today. It is November 9th. And this, Avery, is the first podcast in many podcasts that you didn't lead with the weather. And I'll also make note that the weather is about to change.
No.
Because I can't believe you didn't go with the weather, because like this would have been the time. This is when snow is coming, and snow is here to stay.
Yeah, I mean, I am prepping for Snowmageddon 2021-2022. I think last year a lot of memories came up on people's Facebooks, the Instagrams, everything else.
Yes.
And people's cars were in ditches. People were shoveling out vehicles. And I remember Callum coming to pick me up that morning because my car was not getting out of the parking lot, even if I tried. So, I think it's a day that everyone remembers very clearly from last year, but it'll soon be distant memory, and we won't have to think about how much snow came down in November.
Well, we're looking back now. Today, like we said, is the 9th. So it's the 1-year anniversary of all that snow. Avery, when it comes to Yorkton, are you guys expecting snow tonight? Because I think it's kind of eerie that everyone's like, 5 to 10 centimeters tonight. Maybe.
Yeah, like we're expecting a thin layer, I think, for the night.
Okay.
And then rolling into tomorrow, 5 to 10 centimeters is the expected portion. And then Thursday is when we could be getting even more early on in the morning. So, I think that we'll have a pretty good layer, and I think it'll be here to stay because after the snow does fall, it will be hanging well below zero consistently in the forecast. And, we're going to actually have snow on the ground during provincial football. So
that's how football should be.
Yeah, I mean, that's how it works here in Canada and in Saskatchewan especially. I mean, I remember playing football still with snow on the ground, and that was always fun during practice when there's a foot and you're trying to high step through snowbanks and you're basically trying to run through an extra man because snow is considered an extra defender in a way because you're tripping over it every few seconds.
Yeah, exactly. And transitioning kind of into our feature interview, that's the one sport we didn't really talk about. But we
Yeah.
talked a lot about a bunch of different sports with the great Jamie Neugebauer. First off, thank you, Jamie, for coming on. Nugsy was awesome. But also, Rory, you're on the
Didn't
clock.
show up.
You're on the
Not
clock.
show up.
He picked the date. He picked the date, and he was just like, yeah, we'll do it this night. Yeah, we're good. And then, lo and behold. But one day, Rory will make it on the podcast. And maybe at this point, we kind of just have to do it like live in person to make sure the man gets there and make sure the man is there.
Yeah, I agree. We gotta make
yeah.
it. We gotta make it live. So then, if he doesn't show up, then we'll just spend an hour and a half chirping the guy.
Yeah, exactly. Why not? Why not? But yeah, it was great to chat with Nugsy, and he was awesome. Like, it's one of those classic SJ broadcaster interviews, which we've become accustomed to in a weird way with, the guys that we've brought on before, and Matt and Marty, who will be on soon. But Matt and Marty, and also Benny Walchuk. So this just continues on that kind of series, and it was really good to kind of pick his brain and hear a little bit different. Not totally on Saskatchewan, but obviously that was the majority of our talks. But the guy's from Ontario, so the guy was going to talk about Ontario stuff too. And I always like that when we're able to kind of branch out and talk about more than just Saskatchewan, even though we're a Saskatchewan podcast. It's just nice to get a little bit of a change once in a while. And he definitely provided it while also giving us that dose of what we needed here, talking about cold ass rinks. So without further ado, I think we're going to chuck it over to Nugsy, and we'll see you guys there, and we'll see you guys on the other end on the Lang LeBlanc Get Together. So enjoy. The Saskatchewan Podcast Network is supported by Connexus. Does money spark joy in your life or cause you stress? If you said stress, you're not alone. For 42% of Canadians, their biggest stressor comes from money. At Connexus, they care about your financial well-being. Money doesn't have to be stressful, and Connexus is here to help. The Connexus #MoneyTalk blog provides expert advice, tips, and solutions for all life stages and events. Getting married, buying a house, budgeting, saving, they cover it all and more. And did I mention it's free? Check it out today at ConnexusMoneyTalk.ca and start feeling confident and stress-free about your money. The Saskatchewan Podcast Network is supported by Direct West. Are you a business owner looking for new avenues to promote your business? Direct West digital billboards are a great opportunity to highlight a new product, new promotion, or anything else you'd like your customers to know about. You can get local expert marketing help for your business at directwest.com. Our next guest on the Lang LeBlanc podcast is another SJHL broadcaster. Originally from out east, this guest wears a lot of hats, from play-by-play for the Notre Dame Hounds to co-hosting a weekly SJ show to calling games for Cougar Athletics at the University of Regina. Please welcome Jamie Neugebauer. How's it going today, bud?
Great, thanks for having me. And as you can see, I probably need to be wearing hats more often, as you said, because there's not a lot going on up here. So, good.
So speaking of those hats, did I miss anything? There's got to be more.
I do a lot of freelance writing. So I have a column every week on rodpeterson.com. I do all sorts of communications and writing for Notre Dame. I've been calling prep school games for Notre Dame. I bamboo shoots, and I have worked together to broadcast different things. So I've got a couple other different tires in the fire, but most importantly, boys, I'm a dad and a husband, and that's the number one thing for me.
Well, this is gonna be a lot about dad shit, isn't it?
Only the one out here, guys. Come on.
Only the jokes are gonna be dad jokes.
Oh, of course. Can you tell us, though? We're gonna back things up with you. So where did you first start thinking about getting into broadcasting, and what kind of fueled that fire for you?
hmm Yeah, so it wasn't. I mean, I enjoyed it when I was little, growing up in Toronto. I would go to the Hockey Hall of Fame, and my favorite thing at the Hockey Hall of Fame was the section where you could go and watch famous goals from the NHL or from the IHF in this booth, and pretend to be whoever, Chris Cuthbert, Bob Cole, whatever, and Foster Hewitt even, and call famous goals, right? And just that was the thing that I went to, the first thing I went to in the Hockey Hall of Fame, and when I was little growing up. But I never thought I'd go into hockey or go into broadcasting rather. And then in 2010, I was volunteering writing for a junior A team in Ontario in the Ontario Junior Hockey League, the now defunct Vaughan Vipers, coached by the head coach and general manager was Jason Fortier, who's now an assistant at the University of Maine. And he and I were talking, and I said, I noticed there's nobody doing the play-by-play for the broadcasts, as most teams in the league at the time didn't have any broadcaster. And I said, you know what? I'd love to just try it, like for fun. And I had no idea what I was doing. So that was sort of my start into doing it on a regular basis. I had done a game here or there at my time at Wilfrid Laurier University in Waterloo, Ontario. Called a women's game there once, called a men's game at the University of Guelph once. But other than that, it wasn't sort of a thing that I was thinking of. And then I enjoyed it so much with the Vipers, and then here we are, off to the races.
So how did that end up getting to Saskatchewan? Can you kind of walk us through where you've been and where you've lived and all that jazz?
Right. So I guess in 2012, I went to Centennial College in Toronto and did the sports journalism program there, and was still calling games for a couple teams. The Vipers folded, and Jason Fortier was doing some work with another team, took me there, and then another team picked me up. So kept adding teams in the OJHL, I guess, over the years, and then moved home, and then I guess a mutual friend invited me to a birthday party, and here's the love story for you lovebirds out there. In 2015, I met this awesome girl at a party, and a birthday party of that mutual friend, and she was a sessional professor at the University of Toronto. She's from Regina, but she was a sessional at the University of Toronto, and started dating pretty soon, and then eventually she said, I got a job offer, and it's at the University of Regina. So I was like, oh man. And by then I was calling games for 4 different junior A teams and had an office job in Ontario. And so I was like, well, do I drop all of this and move to Saskatchewan, or do I sort of end it with this girl? Because, neither of us were that interested in a long distance thing. And, ultimately we decided that, I move out here, we'd get married and all that. And I was like, what teams are around? I'm used to the Toronto area where there's 1,000 different teams like in the area, right? That doesn't mean there's 1,000 opportunities, because, there's also 1,000 broadcasters. But I got in touch with the head coach and GM of the Notre Dame Hounds Junior A at the time. He got back to me just on a lark, I guess. And the previous broadcaster for the Hounds had, how shall we say, not been welcomed back. We'll say the year before, because of something that happened. And it all worked out, and I kind of had to grow the Notre Dame Hounds Junior A broadcast, back up from the ground. And I guess that's how I ended up in Saskatchewan. Love is the short answer.
So back in Ontario, or Toronto, I should say, what was it like doing 4 teams at once?
Yeah, it was exhausting. Well, I mean, I'd done. I worked at sportsnet.ca for about a year and a half between 2012 and 2013, and was working for 2 teams at once. And Sportsnet, I think, were like, Jamie, are you here? Are you there? Da, da, da. They didn't renew my contract, and I'd rather be in the rink. The grass is always greener, right? Because now I'm like, oh, that was a sweet job. But So, Sportsnet didn't renew my contract. And so I got in touch with, another team. There was an opening, and then I got in touch with another team. So to answer your question, I was just kind of saving money that last year, especially. I just was living at home with my parents and, be at the rink sort of 4 or 5 nights a week. It's obviously different. I don't know if you're aware, in Junior A in Ontario, pretty much nobody does road games, or not too many people do road games. So I was just kind of doing home games sort of 4 or 5 nights a week in the rink and in the day, and didn't have too much of a social life. It was just saving money for a wedding and for a ring and whatnot. It was busy though. It was a lot of fun though. I loved being at the rink, and I still do. I was at the rink today in Wilcox, and but it was exhausting. Again, short answer, it was exhausting.
So what was your welcome to Saskatchewan moment?
Man, I've had a bunch. Well, one is, one of the thing that I tell people, especially back home, is the passion for junior hockey here is just beautiful, and the love people have for Saskatchewan Junior Hockey, for the Western Hockey League, even for midget. I mean, you get deep into the U18 playoffs, and it's banging in there too. I think it's just beautiful. So I went from in 2015, 16 maybe. I worked for a team that had the team was called the Toronto Patriots, and they had Mario Ferraro was on that team. He's now on the San Jose Sharks. It was a great team. Won Game 7 of the finals in that league in the Buckland Cup at home. I called that, and that was a thrill, and it was amazing. And we were so excited to have 425 fans in the rink at Westwood Arena in Etobicoke, Ontario, in Toronto. And so, my first game in the SJ, I come to the Elgar Peterson Arena. It was Darcy Hoggin's team, the team that was, ultimately in the crash, of course. But, the very first game of the year, Notre Dame at Humboldt, and I'm talking, and they're like, oh, it's down. The attendance is a little bit down, yada, yada, yada. I'm like, so how many you're expecting? Like, oh, like 700-800. Like, it's going to be not great. And I'm like, what? 700-800? And we were like fired right up for 425 for a junior A hockey game in Toronto. And even, I had a lot of friends with the Mississauga Steelheads Ontario Hockey League team and their staff at different times, and they were in the finals against the Erie Otters, a bunch of years ago. The team that had the McLeods, Mikey McLeod and whatnot, and on that Steelheads team. Owen Tippett was on that Steelheads team, and I just, Game 6 of the finals against the Erie Otters in Mississauga, I call up their goalie coach and I say, hey, like, can I have like 5 tickets to the Game 6 of the finals? He's like, yeah, no problem. It was like 3/4 full. And people are talking to me now about, the Pats are struggling to sell tickets. Swift Current's struggling to sell tickets. Everybody's struggling to sell tickets. But I still go walk into the Branch Center in Regina, and I'm like, this is pretty much the same as Game 6 of the finals in Mississauga, Ontario. So, again, to answer your question, like that Elgar Peterson rink where the guy was all like, it's down. It's like 700-800 fans. I'm like, what? What's happening? So, there you go.
So would you say that there's a difference in the hockey culture between Ontario and Saskatchewan, or would you say that they're fairly similar?
It's hard to answer that question because, I think Ontario is there's many different Ontarios. There's really big city Ontario, right, where it's like people in the GTA, the average person are not hockey fans. Like they're not just going to go watch hockey. They'll watch the Leafs. They're Leaf fans. They're passionate about the Leafs, but they don't care about the OHL. They don't care about prospects. They don't care about the draft, really. Like they care about like the Leafs, and they care about the World Juniors occasionally. And that's, the majority of big city, like Toronto people. But then there's, smaller towns all over Ontario where it's, pretty similar. And I think, people talk about, Regina, Saskatoon to some degree being bigger cities. And, my feeling when I talk to a Regina person or a Saskatoon person or being around here, and I don't mean this in an insulting way, even a little bit, like I love it here in Saskatchewan. I love it in Regina. But I still feel like it's kind of a smaller town. Like people care about the Pats. People know who, the Pats legends are, and that's amazing. So, there's small town Ontario like Sault Ste. Marie and Sudbury and whatever, you go down the list, and then there's big city, which is, a different animal, and people love to berate the big city. Obviously, Toronto's, not the most popular place in the world out here, but it's impossible, I guess, to compare the whole province of Ontario and the whole province of Saskatchewan. But there's similarities and there's differences.
So we're going to switch it up and talk a little bit about the teams that you do broadcast. How has Notre Dame been this season, and what's the overall look for you for this year? Obviously, we're coming back from that difficult situation with the pandemic and the mostly canceled season. So how are things going for you?
So the Notre Dame Hounds Junior A are, I guess, in, I could say year 2 maybe of a plan that I guess was hatched by Brett Pilkington as he took over for Phil Roy, who took off a couple summers ago for the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League. And, Brett Pilkington's vision is one that is actually quite familiar to someone who's from the Ontario Junior Hockey League, where it's very, very much, focused on younger, focused on NCAA. And Brett, being a former player at Bowling Green State University, having that as a notion, he's brought in, younger guys, given ice time to younger guys. I mean, Kevin Anderson is committed to Princeton, but he's an 03 birth year. He's second in the league in assists, I think, but he's from Princeton. He's an 03. Elliot Dutiel is first in the league in goals. He's got 14 goals in 15 games, but he's an 03. Right? Like, so these are 18-year-old kids. The list goes down the list. I mean, Austin Elliott is an 04. He's a Western Hockey League prospect, and he's going to go back to the Western Hockey League and be a legitimate, I believe, NHL prospect not too long in the distant future. But, he's an 04 birth year, and you just trust, and that's the attitude. If you want NCAA Division I commitments, you got to trust young guys with ice time and roles, and that's what Brett Pilkington's done. He also knows that at the Duncan McNeil Arena, I'm sure you boys have been there. Nod your head. Yes, you've both been to the Duncan McNeil Arena in Wilcox. Have you guys been there before? No? Okay.
No.
Well, okay. So the number one thing people notice about, other than the history, we don't have to talk about that right now. We can, but the first
that
thing
was my next question.
Sure. From a very visual right away, the first thing you notice about the rink, maybe, is that the ice surface is ginormous, right? Like, it's international ice. And Phil Roy, to his credit, he tried to build big, sort of not the fastest, grind it out, win 3-2 type teams. And that's because, that's what he thought maybe the Saskatchewan League was about. And he had his way and his vision, and that's the way that he thought. But, you can't play for Brett if you can't skate. Like, that's the bottom line. So this Notre Dame team has got great team foot speed, one of the top, foot speed teams in the SJHL. Got the young legs. They go hard. The coach in the league that I think can really get the most out of his troops in terms of effort and guts and all that kind of thing is Braden Klamosko and Battleford's. And the Hounds just played Braden Klamosko's Battleford's No Stars, and they just said, "Wow, these are two similar teams, right?" So they play hard, they're physical, but they're not the biggest. They're young, and they've got some skill. Kevin Anderson is just a treat to watch. He's committed to Princeton for a reason, not just because he's super smart, but also he can play NCAA Division I hockey very soon. And you go down the list, there's lots of potential, lots of ingredients for greatness. And it's been fun. They're young. It'll be up and down, but they're a great group to be around.
If I may add, it is Braden Klamosko's birthday today, so the Humboldt native is celebrating his B-Day today.
That's a good point. Yeah,
the Battleford legend. Yes.
Yeah. No, he's a beauty. And
you won't have to buy beer in town ever again.
No, and the defending Canalta Cup champion still in the SJHL. Nobody has won the Canalta Cup since 2018-19, right?
Man, that's hard to believe, isn't it? Like, it's been that long. Like, my goodness.
There haven't been too many championships anywhere, right? So
I covered the playoff run. That's the weird part. So
that's right. I remember your articles. That's right.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, because you were covering for Melford, right? More than anything.
I was covering a little bit of everything at the time.
Yeah.
But
right.
Yeah. Let's go back to this history at Notre Dame. How is
Mhm.
it being at a place that has so much like prestigious history?
Yeah, it's cool. I mean, you walk in to the Duncan McNeil Arena, and probably the first thing you notice when you before you get to the ice surface, I suppose, is there's a wall with all these pictures on it of the greatest, some of the greatest hockey players of the last 30 years, 40 years on it. I mean, you think about Wendell Clark, you think about Curtis Joseph, you think about Rod Brindamore, you think about Morgan Riley, you think about the guys who are winning cups as coaches, John Cooper, Barry Trotz. These guys wear the Notre Dame name so proudly. Whenever I need anything interview wise from Rod Brindamore, like he's like right there. He doesn't even answer 99% of like media inquiries, but because I said I was coming from Notre Dame, he was like, whatever you need, Jamie. Like, so I got, I've got like in my phone, because of Notre Dame connections, like Brad Richards and Rod Brindamore, and like, the list kind of goes on. Jaden Schwartz, right? Like the list goes right on. So it's a real family that way. And I've talked to Brett Pilkington about this. Like there is an expectation, maybe, I mean, we all want to win. Everybody wants to win, but there's an expectation of developing human beings and of developing great hockey players there. And yeah, it's just an honor and a treat to kind of bear that name. It has a name that some people, I think, spit when they hear the name. Some people have some awe when they hear the name. It's a little bit polarizing to some, I suppose, especially here in Saskatchewan. I think it's in the hockey world in general, it's kind of got a lot of awe to it. But just in general, I think it's super cool, and I don't take it for granted even a little bit.
So in the history that you've been there, Jamie, I
hmm
guess what's the best game that you've called? What's your favorite game that you've called? I'm sure there's an infinite amount that you can pick from, but
hmm
first one that comes to mind.
Well, it doesn't have to be the junior team though, or does it have to be the
Could
junior
be
team?
any
Anybody?
game.
hmm Yeah.
We can come back to the Notre Dame game eventually.
Well, I mean, game three. Well, all the midget finals that I called. The year that the Hounds ultimately went and won the TELUS Cup. I called a bunch of games in the playoffs, including I was supposed to go on the bus game 2 to Prince Albert, because they were playing the Mintos, and there was an ice storm, and it was just dreadful weather. And Devin Prott, who's now the head coach of the Swift Current Broncos, was the coach of the U18 Hounds at the time, and he had a meal for me and everything. But I was like, man, like I can't, I'm not gonna drive like right now. It was crazy. So he was cool with that. But game three back in Wilcox, winning that championship, winning the year after that against the Saskatoon Blazers team, a team that was just stacked, like Nolan Allen, and the Nagy brothers, and Carter Prasovsky on the Winnipeg Ice, and kind of the list goes on. It was a stacked Saskatoon Blazers team too. So that was it's really like the playoffs are just a blast, like in any level. And winning those two, and just knowing that team nobody knows that you're going to go and win the TELUS or a national championship like that, but we all knew it was a super special team. So watching that team was really meaningful. In terms of a junior game, that really sticks out. I'm gonna revisit this spot real soon, actually, because it was in Mydale, neutral site game a couple of years ago against the Estevan Bruins, Notre Dame Hounds Junior A, and it was just packed with rowdy Estevan Bruins fans, and I mean rowdy. They were just all over it, and it was rocking and bumping. And I had to call the game from the crowd, and the Hounds played a heck of a game and ended up winning, and the crowd shut right up. It was fantastic. I love that. That's my favorite noise in sports. Actually, is not loud noise. It's when you're like cheering for the home team, the away team, and there's dead silence after something goes down. That's my favorite.
Can you tell us a little bit more about getting involved with the Cougars athletics and doing those? Are you doing men's and women's games?
Just women's. I've done women's since 17, 18, and when I first moved to Saskatchewan, I mean, you guys are in the media business. Like, you need to find whatever avenue you possibly can, right? So I got in touch with U of R, I got in touch with Notre Dame, got in touch with the Regina Patsies. I had an interview with the Regina Pats, but they were a bit of an organization in disarray back then too. Don't need to go too much into that, but I did have like a bunch of interviews with the Regina Pats even. But in touch with Braden Conch, who's still the sports information director at the U of R, and they didn't have any women's hockey broadcasters, so he's like, "Great, we'd love to have you. Like, you're clearly qualified." So I was like, "Awesome," and it's just a treat to deal with the U of R sports information people. They treat you so well when you work for them, and it's a lot of fun. There haven't been, there've been more W's on the women's side of the hockey than the men's side, but not a ton, but but anyway, Sarah Hodges, the head coach of the U of R, is a wonderful human being, and really it's a treat to deal with her too. So I don't take, again, same with Notre Dame, I don't take it for granted at all to call games for the U of R. I've called lots of basketball too for the U of R, by the way, because I think their play-by-play voice is Adam Hunter, who's a CBC reporter, I believe, and he's probably a busy dude. So I think sometimes they call me in to do basketball too a whole bunch, which is a lot of fun. And last point I'll make is I got to call a women's national championship game. I'm trying to think of who was between. Maybe McGill and Carleton, or McGill and Brock, or Carleton and Brock. I can't remember who it was, but when Regina hosted I guess it wasn't memorable enough for me to remember the teams, but I really enjoyed that. I love calling basketball too. It's a blast.
So how is it, like, obviously it's different because it's a different sport, but how different is it switching from different sports, like from hockey to basketball?
Yeah, and I should mention that last couple of seasons I've also been the voice of the U of R women's soccer team, and I love soccer so much. Like, man, big time TFC fan, big time Liverpool fan. Anyways, soccer, hockey and basketball are both so fast paced. I mean, basketball, it's great to have. It's really important, I think, especially in basketball, to have a knowledgeable color commentator, because things happen so fast. It's so densely packed. So I think it's harder to see what exactly happened maybe in basketball every single time, but overall they're both fast paced. I think it takes maybe even more prep to call soccer, because people number one argument people have with soccer, oh, it's so boring, it's slow, blah blah blah. It is definitely like a little slower, and so it takes more prep because you need to fill in a little bit more. But I joke with the U of R Notre Dame people when I first took my tour around the campus there in Wilcox. I said, I'll call anything. I'll call calculus class. I'll call lunch. I don't care. I'll broadcast anything. So,
calculus class, how would that go down?
I don't know. I'd probably use a lot of like dodgeball references. He's using the blue chalk. That's a bold move, Cotton. So I said I'd call anything. You gotta do what you gotta do to make a few bucks sometimes, right?
100%. So I wanted to bug a guy who was supposed to be here tonight, Rory McGoran. He was supposed to show up, ended up
just so everyone knows. Yes. Yeah.
Rory McGoran out of Humboldt, voice of the Broncos. Since he's not here to talk about his team, they're currently the number one team in the SJHL. I guess what are your thoughts on what you've seen from them so far? Standing wise, they're number one team. Standing wise.
Yeah. No, Scott Barney does an unbelievable job there, and I say it I thought last year maybe if the pandemic didn't ruin it, they would really be a contender for the national championship. They were even better last year, and they're still building this year. They're really built this year from the back end out. Last year they were built to score 1,000 goals and hope their young D holds on. This year they have scored 1,000 goals. They have an experienced D-core and Race Ramsey, who's a Western Hockey League veteran in net, and he's one of the best in the SJHL. So, the way that Scott Barney has his team practice, the way that they play, it's full metal hockey all over the ice. It's hard to keep up with, and they pressure you everywhere. Their D never make a mistake, it feels like, and They have, the best individual player in the league and the most obnoxious individual player in the league, and that's Logan Kirky. And he doesn't make any friends on other teams. He's not there to make any friends. He's kind of like the heel from, WWE kind of thing. Like he makes all sorts of gestures and points to his jersey and all sorts of, but he has fun out there. I'm sure that's what he would say. But he's dynamite. They just got a D1 commit, Connor McGrath, an 03 birth year, who's actually leading the league in points right now as an 03 birth year, and he's been outstanding. Another one of those Moose Jaw Warriors U18 AAA prospects, because there's a million of them around. But they'll score, best decor in the league, maybe the best goalie in the league. They are stacked. They just added what's his name? Morozov, I think his name is, from formerly of the Saskatoon Blades, from the Nanaimo Clippers in the BCHL. So as if they needed more weapons. And last thing I'll say is, maybe one other guy, maybe Trevor Blevins in Melfort, but I always say that there's nobody in the league that likes to trade like Scott Barney. So
yeah, I was about to say
he's gonna keep trading.
Like he wields and deals like there's nobody.
Yeah,
like
he's
nobody.
Probably a really good fantasy sports player. So and he says to his players, and he's told me this many times, and I've got a really good relationship with Scott Barney. He and I have really good chats, and he says, with the Broncos and Hughes, like, it's my way or the highway. And some kids have clearly taken the highway, and the kids that take his way, win. So, it's a cool. He's a great guy, and it's obviously a great rink, and holds a lot of great memories for me playing there. Going there because the Hounds and the Broncos play each other 10 times a year, and there's no team in the league that being a Notre Dame Hounds employee that I'd rather beat than the Humboldt Broncos.
Do you have a message for Rory right now also?
Yeah, I hope your date is more enjoyable. I hope you're watching a great movie. But I hope your popcorn is soggy.
Too much butter.
Too much butter on that popcorn. But,
So,
we're not as good looking probably as his date.
We'll flip things around, though, and start talking well about Rory.
Right.
Can you tell us a little bit more about SJ at Noon and the stuff that you guys are doing together?
Yeah, we're very fortunate that I'll say that I'm fortunate because I live kind of down the street from the studio that we do the show in. Like, literally, it's like a 1-minute walk. Rory drives 2.5 hours every Monday to Regina from Humboldt and then back again. He did that all last year to talk about when maybe we'll have hockey. And so his commitment to his craft is remarkable. He is a remarkable broadcaster at his age. He makes me better in so many ways. I think he and I go really well together personally. I mean, not to toot our own horns too much, but I think, my style is kind of analytical, laid back. I like to make a joke, obviously, and whatever. His is, that classic broadcastery, in your face, blustery, argumentative, that kind of a thing. So I think we have a nice little kind of counterbalance going on there. And obviously, you guys know, doing your podcast, the more you do something together with somebody else, the better you guys get together too. So, I'm very grateful for Rory. He's extremely committed. He works extremely hard. He absolutely loves his Humboldt Broncos. He would talk about the Humboldt Broncos the entire SJ at Noon show, and if he could, but he doesn't. He works hard for everybody. And and he's taught me a lot in a short period of time, more with just actions than words. So I'm very grateful for him as a friend first, and as I guess a partner as second, and other things that we've been we're gonna do and have done. We called a lot of games together at the Warman Showcase there, and in Warman Legends Center, which is a beautiful rink, and I think they should have an SJ team there or something because it's really nice, and they have a booster juice in the rink, which I think makes it better than a lot of SJ rinks anyways already. But we called a bunch of games there, so I think we got some really good chemistry. We got some more irons in the fire as a team, and fortunately too, the league is entrusted us in a lot of ways to write on the website and to tell the stories of the league and to be unbiased and to represent it well. And I wouldn't want anybody else to do it with. He and I have talked, off air that like if you get me, then you get him, and if you get him, you get me. Like if we're offered a thing, we're gonna say right away, like, what about Rory? So, and he says, what about me? So, we got each other's back, and I think it's a great partnership.
You're just sitting there eating the popcorn on the date too.
Who? Him?
You
or
no,
me?
you, because you guys are such a good team. You're just sitting there,
Oh,
just in case he needs backup.
Right. Well, you know what? He's a great broadcaster, so I just try to he's flying and I'm just hanging on by the coattails there. I got my strengths, he's got his. He would say I'm a better writer. I would say he's a better broadcaster, and we're just
It's actually
a good tandem.
Let's actually transition into that. Let's talk about your writing. So obviously Notre Dame Hounds, you write about. What else do you write about?
Yeah, so every Wednesday on the SJHL website, I do the power rankings web column thing there, and on Friday, you do a player profile on the SJHL website. Every Tuesday afternoon for Wednesday morning, I write a 10 things hockey column on Rod Peterson's website, though I sneak in soccer things and sometimes personal things, sometimes philosophical things, I guess, sort of like it's 10, 1 to 10 kind of things that I'm thinking about, and whatever. Rod's just like, whatever you want, and apparently some people have really enjoyed reading them, and I really appreciate everybody out there who has. Notre Dame puts out a magazine called the News Hound, distributes it to their alumni, which are literally around the world. So they pay me to do that, which is nice. Just like over the years, I've had different fun opportunities. I really covered the Moose Jaw Warriors really closely at the Regina hub. I still cover the Western Hockey League a bunch in my column, and still affiliated with the Deb Network. So I love writing too, and that's sort of what I trained on more than broadcasting in my post grad, believe it or not. So if there's anybody who needs writers out there, I'm here for you.
Awesome.
Yeah.
One question that we ask kind of like everyone in here when it comes to hockey, what's your favorite Saskatchewan barn?
My favorite Saskatchewan barn. That's a great question. Man, I might get crucified if I said the EPA, but I really love the EPA. Like, I don't know, it's just got so many good memories. It's so well lit. I love the replay up there on the screen. That's so nice for a broadcaster. And obviously, I gotta say the Dunk, right? Like the Duncan McNeil Arena and Wilcox have called, so many games there, spent so many hours there. It really feels like home. I really feel like I can go anywhere and kind of explore the space and whatnot. So probably those two. Honestly, like I love every rink that I've been in Saskatchewan, from the neutral site games, Gull Lake out way out west, just absolutely frigid. Sitting there just shivering trying to broadcast, and a parent said, "Hey, like, you need a hot chocolate?" And I was like, "I guess so. I'm trying to call a game." So Gull Lake and Moosomin, the other side, and Southie, Mydale, the Legends Center, like so many are great. I love like Westland Arena in Yorkton, just a beautiful rink too. So this is a province absolutely just chock-a-block full with awesome rinks, like with character and with beauty. So man, like we're just so lucky in this province. But if I had to pick two, because you asked me for one, I'll say that EPA and the Dunk.
So I have to ask you this then. What's the coldest barn?
Well, it depends on where you are in the Dunk, but on the side of the rink in the Dunk where there's no fans, just me in the booth and the camera guy and the other team's broadcaster and whoever, there's no heaters. So it has been frigid. But the coldest, for just in general, was Gull Lake, at least when I was there. But great atmosphere, though. It was just bounce. Love those neutral site games. Notre Dame is 3 this year. in Radville, in Southie, and in Mydale. So they're just going to be bouncing, and just love an atmosphere, right? Who doesn't?
I actually played in Southie at one point
The Harry-O.
back when my career peaked in Pee Wee hockey, and I played for their AA provincial team, and from there it all went downhill. So yeah,
Injuries brought the guy down, unfortunately.
Injuries.
Yeah, injuries.
Yeah. We'll go with that.
Curious.
But just for the people that aren't from Saskatchewan, give us your favorite barn anywhere in Canada.
So the sexy pick that I'm sure lots of people say is the Whitney Forum in Flin Flon, which is wonderful, especially because of the atmosphere, and it is a wonderful barn. But my favorite rink to go to a game is completely because of nostalgia. And you talk about another historic barn where so many like legends have played, and is such a Toronto staple, is St. Mike's Arena. Have you guys heard of St. Mike's Arena? It's where,
once or twice, yeah.
Like so Bathurst and St. Clair in Toronto. Just a tiny little barn on the campus of St. Michael's College, sort of another kind of Catholic boarding school, kind of like Notre Dame. But anyways, they've got a junior A team there now. They've had one for a while, the St. Mike's Buzzers, and Andrew Cogliano played there. But there's a lot of St. Mike's kids like in the NHL, like Tom Wilson. I'm trying to think of others right now. The list kind of goes like really on. Look it up. St. Mike's Buzzers, St. Mike's Majors was the like top team, and then there was the Buzzers. That's why they're called the Buzzers, because they were like the B team. But now that's the only team left, because But growing up in high school and whatnot, the St. Mike's Majors had an OHL team, and the rink held about 1,800 at its absolute peak. And so for an OHL game, can you imagine that? Like, it was just like, and the atmosphere in there for games, and just it was rowdy and rocking, and the team was never great, but they would always try really hard. And so, and just the sight lines are great. You feel like you're in the game, like you're right in the action. And I got to see like Jeff Carter and like Anthony Stewart and Mike Richards and like all these great players like go through there that ended up in the NHL, like Steven Stamkos and PK Subban, and like all these great players in this tiny little barn. And like McDavid and Sagan and them, like Toronto area guys, like they all train there still in the summers. Like if you watch a lot of what's it called, BioSteel stuff or whatever, like a lot of their camps and stuff are still at St. Mike's Arena, because it's a perfect location. Like it's not too far from downtown. They probably all have sick downtown pads, so it's like pretty easy for them to get to. And it's just classic. Like it's right there. The closest feeling I got calling a game in Saskatchewan, believe it or not, was actually in Mel Hegland Uniplex in L'Orange. Not, people are like, L'Orange this and that and whatever, but you're like right there, like just right on top of the play, and you could die at any minute if a puck just takes a bad bounce. But same at St. Mike's Arena, and there's no net crazy netting anywhere to save your life. So just a wonderful barn, and if you're ever in Toronto, check it out.
Is there any like crazy booths that you've been in where like pucks come in all the time? Something that doesn't really give you the best sight, something like that?
Well, my own normal natural perch in Wilcox, my regular perch, many pucks are flying up towards where I am. I mean, they have a pane of glass sort of right in front of me that I wish that they would remove, actually, because it's just all it does is restrict view. But apparently Jaden Schwartz's mom used to sit up there and do something. I don't really know what it was, but she used to. I gotta ask what she was doing up there. But they put it up there because Jaden Schwartz and Rylan Schwartz, who's Jaden Schwartz's older brother, I believe plays in Germany right now. But anyways, was up there, and she asked that they put it up there because it was a dangerous situation, I suppose. But I've never really felt like unsafe. I've heard of people falling through because like you're in L'Orange, you're on top. Have you guys ever been to the L'Orange rink before, Mel Hegland? So if you're calling the game, you're like on top of your team's bench basically, and like you could fall into your like team's bench essentially. Like you're on like a piece of wood on top of the bench basically, and you climb a very precarious ladder and whatever. So it's cool. Like if your team has like a
I've
5
heard
on
about this
4,
hole. Like you go up the hole and
yeah,
you're in there.
right,
Yeah.
yeah,
Marty talks about it. Yeah.
yes, exactly. So you could die absolutely. And yeah, I'm more like, oh, don't smash the cameras, don't smash my computer. Like this is like it's like got it in like 2017, but at the time it was like a $3,000 MacBook Pro. Like, don't smash my MacBook Pro. Come on, man. I'm a poor broadcaster. I can't afford that.
I remember in
I'll take it in the face. Yeah.
In Balcarres, where I'm from, in our rink, basically they had one of those hole type of things for the scorers, or not the scorers, but the goal judges. And I remember my parents and like all the kids' parents would just be like, yeah, sure, go play on there. Go have your 5-cent candies up there. And I'm thinking like now, like any of us could have fallen and that could have ended very badly, even on the ice. Like,
yeah.
But
well, you talk about getting into booths. I mean, there's one thing about being in the booth. There have been plenty of booths that it's very dangerous to get into the booth. I mean, Laurent won my booth in Wilcox again. Talk about how cold it can be on that side of the rink. Maybe it's minus 35 outside. Like my hands are just like, and like, you fall. If you fall, like there's nothing. Like it's just wham. Like it's brutal. And like our old goalie coach at Notre Dame, Rusty Abbott, he literally fell, carrying stuff up, climbing this ladder into the booth at the Duncan McNeil Arena, and he like busted up his leg or knee or something really, really bad. So, I always joke like that's how I'm gonna die, is climbing the ladder at the dunk. And I'm always like carrying like huge bags of gear and stuff. All the other broadcasters in the league, Marty and Rory and Benny Walchuk, these guys have their neat little briefcases, that they carry up, like these little European bags when they're little puppies, into the other arms are like, I got like this huge like Notre Dame bag over one arm, my backpack. I'm like climbing up, and it's like minus $1 million, and I'm like, that's how Jamie Neugebauer will meet his demise.
Well, hey, at least you do it doing what you love, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So when we were in Warman, this is where we originally met. You told me a story about your high school and how you are very clearly the most famous person from your high school. Can you tell it on the podcast?
Right. So I am not the most famous guy to come from my high school is Andrew Wiggins, who plays in the NBA for the Golden State Warriors. And he's about 5 years younger than me, but I remember going back, the summers from university, and people were like, oh, there's this kid playing basketball at Vaughan, grade 9, 10 student in Kentucky and Duke and Kansas or whatever, scouting him. And I'm like, come on, whatever. And then turned out to be Andrew Wiggins, who went number 1 overall in the NBA draft. And we were like pretty decent basketball school, and Ontario high school basketball is like pretty serious. Like the competition is really serious. Maybe prep schools are taking that out a little bit now, but back then it was, the public schools were really serious business. And like I went back when I was doing my post-grad at Centennial College. I we had to do different sort of feature projects, and I decided, hey, I'm from Vaughan. Like I know Andrew Wiggins' old coach, and at the time, back in 2012, Andrew Wiggins was still a pretty big deal, and he's trying to resurrect his career in Golden State, doing a good job of it. But went back to his old coach, and I said, Gus, his name was Gus Gymnopoulos. I said, Gus, why didn't you make me like Andrew Wiggins? And he said, look at you, Jamie. And I was like, man. But then I did a project and did pretty well on it. So, get in the door. But
your first overall draft pick in everyone's hearts.
Oh yeah. Well, thank you.
This has been.
I don't believe you, but thank you.
This has been absolutely awesome. We've been going for about 45 minutes, which is really where we kind of want to be at this point. But yeah, we could really talk to you forever. But once Rory actually, makes it here, We want to pull
Once
you
he's
back
done his
on.
popcorn. Once he's all done the popcorn.
Yeah,
Done his
doing what he's
popcorn.
doing.
Yeah, which is what we're calling it. The kids are calling it these days. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. We'll bring you back on. But right before you leave, we like to give our guest the floor for a couple minutes just to promote what you want to promote, say what you want to say, and tell the people where they can find you.
Yeah, so as you can see at Neugsy, I do all the social media for the Notre Dame Hounds Junior A, so at NDAJRA or NDJRA Hounds, NDJRA Hounds on Twitter and Instagram, and you can find them on Facebook. I try to be creative, try to make it look good. On rodpeterson.com every Wednesday, as I said, and anywhere that says Jamie Neugebauer, Wednesdays and Fridays on the SJHL website. SJ at noon on SJ at noon on Mondays at noon on Facebook Live. Would love to see everybody tune in and comment and say saw you on the Brady Lang Avery LeBlanc show and LLP and hit me up on Twitter. I'd love to hear from anybody. Ask a question about junior hockey and I'll make up an answer.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for doing this, Neugsy. You're officially a friend of the podcast before Rory, so you can hold that over his head for the rest of your lives.
Awesome.
But yeah, thanks again, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, Jamie.
Blast. Thank you guys.
Avery and I are from here. We were born here. We were raised here, and this is our home too.
We just want to give people a couple hours a week to sit back, relax, and enjoy themselves, and also hear something they wouldn't hear elsewhere.
And in doing this in Saskatchewan with Saskatchewan guests, even if they're not from here, when we have these guests on, they're still doing something for our community. Whether that's in the sports scene, a journalist, a broadcaster, or just someone out making a difference. The Lang LeBlanc Podcast is about bringing people together and just chatting about Saskatchewan.
I know I wouldn't want to live anywhere else, and it's been amazing showcasing these people, telling these stories, and it's just been so much fun throughout these last 6 months.
The best part is we're still growing. People are still just finding out about us, and we're just going to keep growing and getting bigger and bigger. Tune in to the Lang and LeBlanc Podcast weekly for your Saskatchewan podcast.
Find us on Apple, Google, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts, and head to our website at langleblancpodcast.com.
We are back. Welcome back to the Lang and LeBlanc Podcast. We are now at the point of the Lang and LeBlanc Get Together, and that's where Avery and I every single week chat about stuff we want to. It's not Saskatchewan Saturday Night, if you guys have listened to us in the past, but it kind of is.
We'll say that the Get Together is like a cousin of Saskatchewan Saturday Night.
That works. That works. Rest in peace. Hanging in the rafters. One thing I do want to mention is my new space.
It is a wonderful space.
I moved my desktop, and I'm now in the makeshift office of the Lang and LeBlanc Podcast. So look a little bit different. We still have some kinks. Obviously, we need to get lighting sorted out, because if you guys are watching this on the YouTube channel, I just have.
What is that?
We bought a lamp, a standing lamp tonight, for getting up in the middle of the night, because it's happening more often for some reason. But yeah, this is its first use. Is the lighting. So maybe I'll get real fancy and I'll figure out a way to get one of those circle light thingies, and I will look even better. Maybe the mustache will look worse.
How about the chair in the back? What's that for?
This one? This is Cooper's chair. That's where Cooper sleeps. He loves that chair more than anything in the world. And yeah, that's Cooper's space. So, I just punched my microphone. Sorry about that for the audio listeners.
Boom, there you go. Put her there.
You will likely see Cooper at some point sitting in that chair during the recording of our podcast. So hopefully he does that and doesn't just sit right next to my knee and not leave. I love it. I love him. Obviously, he is our dog. But at the same time, you can hear those click clacks and everything. We don't have that anymore. He is at the other end of the wall, or this wall, I guess, with everyone else. So it's kind of nice to have my own space in a weird way. And you know what? I can be a little bit louder too, unfortunately. I hope they're not hearing me on the other side of the wall. But if I get fired up,
you can hoot and holler all you want, right?
Yeah, exactly. But let's get to the get together. Avery, one thing I wanted to talk about this week, and one thing I wanted to kick things off with, is the Dog River elevator burning to the ground. Did you see this, and what was your reaction?
I did, and it made me think of when Dad would turn on Corner Gas back in the day, and we'd watch like episodes here and there. I don't think I ever watched the full series as a whole, but I watched episodes kind of in spurts, right? And the older I got, the more entertaining they got. And I really missed that show. I tried watching the animated series. Wasn't my type of thing. I know that other people have different tastes, but that was a sad thing to see, that site had so much history around it.
Yeah.
The gas station got cleared out, and now the elevator's gone.
That was like the last kind of remaining Dog River thing in the community. So it was tough to see. Obviously, we've had a lot of like major fires that have knocked out like Saskatchewan institutions in the last little bit. Obviously, we had the Moosehead Inn. One thing that I always go back to is Lembar in Lemberg. I've had and shared a couple drinks in that establishment, but like, it's tough to see these kind of iconic structures hit the ground, right? And hit the ground in honestly, a blaze of glory in a weird way. But yeah, it was weird though too, because Corner Gas Animated ended this week as well. I'm not 100% sure if it was on the same day that the elevator burned down, but I think I may have seen a tweet about it.
That would be a hell of a coincidence, man. If that happened, is that a signal from the gods that the Corner Gas is officially done?
I mean, I hope we can bring a member of Corner Gas on.
We've been messaging Brent Butt continuously.
Avery's just gonna start calling people out that haven't answered us back.
Get back to us. We would love to have you on the show.
You know what's funny?
Love.
Oscar, originally from Indian Head.
Oh, really?
So he was I'm pretty sure he has a cabin at Katepwa. So while I was growing up and doing, little kid shit, he was just chilling and walking around in Katepwa. So I remember I was so close. I pulled up beside him once, and I think it was my dad in the vehicle. He may have tried to get me to roll down the window and yell at him jackass, but I just couldn't. I'm like, oh, that man is on TV.
There's the guy.
Back when I had shame, and now I have no shame, and I will talk to anyone at any time.
You think about you wish you could go back in time and tell your little self, roll the damn window down, you bugger.
Just do it. Just do it. Why not? It'll be funny. Back when I was shy and, but yeah, obviously Corner Gas is a huge thing when it comes to Saskatchewan culture. And I felt like we would be remiss to not talk about it. Also, I don't have this on the show lineups, but I should have. What happened the other day in Saskatoon was something that was called on this podcast. A moose ran around Saskatoon, and they went, they contacted the media. And it went international. It was really nice to be, known internationally for something that wasn't COVID.
Yeah, it was quite interesting to see that story develop, because there was a moose sighting earlier on in the morning, and then later on in the morning, it busted into class.
Yeah, well, I'm all hours now, right? So I look at Twitter whenever I can, and it was early in the morning I saw this, and I'm like, oh, yep, called it, another one. And then had a little bit of a nap, one of those 3-hour spurts I'm on.
Yeah,
and woke back up, and I was like, okay, that's going in the content. Kind of have to at this point. But yeah, the moose flew into Sylvia Fedoric School in Saskatoon. It was a before school program, I believe.
Yeah,
that was in that room at that point.
Well, I think you could probably can the rest of the school day after something like that happens.
I mean, I don't think they did, but like,
Damn,
what
those
a
kids
what a
must have been
story!
disappointed.
What a story, right? Like they never cancel stuff anymore. It was just like Snowmageddon last year that they canceled stuff for. So, yeah, one of those. But it was always fun to see that kind of stuff roll out, and it made me miss the newsroom a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Like I obviously miss the newsroom a crazy amount, but like missing out on a Moose Day, damn.
It's a once in a lifetime story, man.
Yeah, exactly. But we're gonna move along right here. You got something out of good soil.
Yeah, so the Degenhart family is going to be on Family Feud Canada this November 11th. So by the time this episode is played or put out there, and by the time you're listening to this, the episode has already been aired. And had a great interview with the family earlier on this week through Fox FM. Joe is actually one of the cousins, a part of this group, and he's from Esterhazy. He lives in Esterhazy. So he hit us up and was like, hey, you want to have us on? I said, sure. So the interview is airing Wednesday morning through Fox FM, and then I'm gonna recap with them later on in the week to talk about how it went, and because they can't give anything away because it was pre-recorded, right?
That's true.
They make them sign a wicked contract. If you do give anything away, then you can kiss the money that you won goodbye, right?
We are back. Obviously, this new studio is also in a room in which Rhett is changed. So Rhett needed to be changed. But yeah, awesome that they're going to be on Family Feud.
Yeah. Shout out to the
all over
Degenharts.
the place.
No worries. Shout out to the Degenharts. Hopefully they come out with a dub as the episode airs on Thursday.
Do you ever realize, like, here in Saskatchewan, like any chance we get to see someone that's like from here on like a national stage, we're all like Coulter Wall, Yellowstone the other night. There's a good example.
More like a worldwide stage like Deadpool.
Yeah, exactly. That's us.
Yeah.
We're from there.
That's Regina. Oh my God.
I know a guy from there.
Right
over there.
Regina. Holy smokes.
Yes. Goodness. Avery, you want to talk a little bit about poppy season as well?
Yeah, of course. I've purchased my poppy. I'm sure many people out there have as well. Of course, be sure to get yours. Every little bit helps. There's obviously those cash and change trays that you can use. Also, some poppy bins do actually have the tap on them.
I saw that. That's wild.
Yeah, it's quite interesting to see. I guess it makes things a lot easier for everyone out there because we've moved to electronic banking. Who carries cash around with them anymore? Only when they go to Sarcan, right? And usually
after Sarcan, yes.
Yeah. After Sarcan, you might throw that into a jar to save on a free leisure day or something like that. It's pretty crazy when you see that type of stuff and how it evolves over time. But yeah, services, obviously, Thursdays in your respective communities, you can hit up your own town offices and figure out when and where it's going to be taking place. Some of them should be virtual, especially with how COVID's looking right now. I know some communities have taken that route just to make it a little safer. So yeah, just stick to your communities, figure out what's going on, and be sure to attend those services. And you can also just hang out at home, enjoy the service that way, and take a moment to just reflect.
Yeah, exactly. And we'll transition now to Snowmageddon, like we were talking about earlier. Avery, you had your story when it came to last year's snowfall on this day. For me, it was a weird one. So I normally, when things aren't hectic and crazy, I'm anchoring every Sunday on CKOM and CJME. And it was like the most bizarre day ever because I remember the week before, it was one of those storms that was warned about. And basically it got to the point where it was like, we've seen so many warnings when it comes to COVID and everything. You kind of get to the point where it's like, is it really going to happen? Especially with the weather, because it's so finicky. And like, you're like, oh, really? Like 15 to 30 centimeters? Like, we don't have any snow
Mother
on the
Nature.
ground. We have no snow on the ground right now. And the one time, like, it hit. and it hit hard. And I remember looking out the window and be like, it's snowing sideways. I think I tweeted that too. And I got a little bit of traction, but I was like, it is literally snowing sideways, because you could look outside my office and see the snow going sideways on this one lamppost. And it was just bizarre. That wind howled, and it was definitely, it was weird because it was never considered a blizzard in a weird way. It was a snow event. And I think it's because it had that much snow. But I remember like driving down the road the next day. I woke up at 6 a.m. And started just driving around Saskatoon and doing kind of like road reports kind of deal, but explaining what's going on, what everything looks like. And then basically driving through, I stopped at a red light. I think it was on Ruth and like the crescent coming out of Saskatchewan crescent. I can't remember for some reason. But right by Stan's place. And legitimately those snowmobilers. And I'm sitting there like, okay, we're there. That's where we are. Snowmobiling. And I did a story the next day if it was legal to drive this like snowmobiles, and it was the weirdest response ever from the police, because it was like very gray. you know, it one of those.
They were like, it's not allowed normally, but we'll allow it for this one occasion.
Yes, exactly. So kind of bleeding into Ask Sask this week. Yes, it is back. Ask Sask. What do we ask Sask things? Avery, with winter coming right around the corner, our best life hacks for surviving a Saskatchewan winter. You start.
I think this is essential for every vehicle in this province. I know that they're not very affordable for most people. People got budgets. People got to meet the needs. They got to pay the bills before they do anything that is a little extra. But it is so nice when it is minus 30, minus 40, and you can just hit a button and your vehicle is fired up and nice and warm. I've had a remote start on my vehicles for the last 3 years, I want to say. And yeah, everyone has been fantastic. Love it to bits. Even though it might still be a little chilly once you hop in the vehicle, once you get rolling, you're good to go. I know I'm going to use mine a ton this upcoming winter. It's going to be overused, probably. It might be sick of me by the end of the year. But yeah, Brady, what is your life hack when it comes to surviving the Saskatchewan winter?
Honestly, Avery, don't be too proud to wear long johns. Long johns can save you. And the best part about long johns, you don't have to tell anyone you're wearing them. We all know it's cold outside. You know, it's one of those things where you're like, should I wear it? No shame. No shame. Don't have shame wearing long johns, because they may not be the most comfortable thing in the world, but they'll save you.
100%, especially if you got to walk to work or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. So send us your best life hacks for surviving a Saskatchewan winter. We'll talk about it more next week. We'll bring your basically thoughts to this question alive and talk about them right here on the Lang and LeBlanc podcast. So if you're seeing this, I won't say that. I was going to say, if you're seeing this on social media, comment below, but I didn't want to be that. So I'll write it in there. But yeah, let's switch over to the Rough Rider Corner, Avery.
All right, Rough Riders. Where do I start, man?
Where do you start? Yes, that seemed like a boring football game.
It was. I watched the first quarter and I stopped watching it up until the very end of the game. I watched that Duquille onside recovery, which is like the third one in as many weeks.
You don't even have to write the article. You can just copy and paste it.
Honestly, it's the exact same game as we had against Montreal. That's how it feels. And really, it's just
the most deflating win like I've seen in a while in Riderville.
It really is. And you know, it's really frustrating to watch not only the Riders, but the CFL like this sometimes, you know, when you're watching
it's not good for the game.
No, it's not. It's not exciting to watch. And also, like, the Riders, you expect them to be this go for it all type team where it's like, get what you can. Sometimes they're like in the CFL, I remember years where you could chuck it over the middle 20 yards and the receiver would run another 60 yards to the end zone, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that just doesn't seem to be happening this year, and you're not seeing as many kickoff or punt returns or anything of that nature. And it's just like, it's hard to sit through a game in the CFL. Also a Rider game, I find. Like, even if you are a fan of them, it's like, I could be doing something a little bit more productive with my day, right? You hate to say it, but man, you got to make it more interesting if you want to keep the fans around. But yeah, another game where the Riders scored 19 points and no more than that. And hopefully next week looks a little better. Riders could claim a playoff spot, a home playoff spot, if they win, which I think all Rider fans are pretty excited for. Hey.
Yeah, exactly. And looking on to next week, if we don't blow out Edmonton, are you worried?
A little bit.
Yeah.
Like, I think you have to win this
stretch
game.
the legs, like just do something.
Exactly. And you know what? You might as well start getting used to this cooler weather, because if you're not ready for it by the time the playoffs come around, you're going to be stuck in the water. More like stuck in the snow, I should say. And it's going to be brutal.
The elements are going to be wild this year, and like the late Grey Cup, if it goes well, I want to see it more. Honestly, it's weird competing, obviously, with like the NFL on this stage, but at the same time, these cold weather games are going to be fun to watch.
They will be. And I hope the Riders can bring a show when it comes to playoff time. But if they do win this upcoming weekend against the Elks, a question I wanted to ask you, Brady. I think we got to throw Harker and Lynch in. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so. You know my opinions and thoughts already. But yeah, I think we need to look at something different, something that may work better in a pinch situation. Just because, like, you've seen that with other teams where they can throw in a second quarterback. Like the Riders, they can, theoretically.
Yep.
Will it work? We don't totally know. I just haven't seen enough from Isaac Harker. And Paxton Lynch, obviously, I worry because, like, obviously the guys have all the talent in the world that go to the NFL, but sticking in the NFL is another thing. I hope this guy can kind of regenerate his career in the CFL, but at the same time, I don't know if there's going to be an opportunity for him. So it'll be interesting to see what happens, but yeah, we'll see. But Avery, let's transition over to LLP local sports now. I like how we're just sprinting through the last little bit here, but Avery, high school football playoffs. You already talked about it a little bit, but talk about it more.
Yeah, so my Waka Warriors in 2A 6-a-side football. I'm just going to start with that because this is the matchup I'm most excited for. So I'm making the drive to Clavet for this game. I'm not missing an opportunity to watch my two brothers play in the provincial final. And this is the only time that my two brothers will be able to play together on the same team, unless later down the road they eventually play together. But yeah, Waka is heading to Clavet. That game's taking place Saturday at 1 p.m. Waka has absolutely obliterated all their opponents. No respect, no disrespect to Lanigan or Watrous. 90-14 in the first matchup on October 30th, and then on November 6th, Waka beat Watrous 72-33. That game was a lot closer in the first half. It was like 35-33 at halftime. My mom sent me a photo, and I was like, oh, shoot, this one's a tight one. It's going to be close. But no, Waka ran away with it, probably shut Watrous out in the second half. And, yeah, they're moving on to the final. And it's a little bit of a rematch because last time Waka made the provincial final a few years back, they played Clavet, but Waka hosted. So I hope that the Warriors can give Clavet a little bit of a taste of their own medicine. Now, moving back into 6-a-side 1A football. Oh, my gosh. The links are not loading, and it's bugging me.
Oh, my God. Get better Wi-Fi.
Get better Wi-Fi. So moving on in 1A, it's Carrot River and Hafford. Now, Hafford won the last high school football season. the provincial championship against Wynyard. This time they're taking on Carrot River. Hafford, really good team. Every time I've seen them play, they've blown out the teams that they've played. But I think Carrot River's got a pretty solid chance at giving Hafford a run for their money. So we'll see what they can do there.
For sure. I'm excited for your high school football talk again next week.
Yes, I still have a couple more. There's 12.
Oh, you're going to keep going. Keep going.
Yeah, it's still taking a while to load though. Oh, there we go.
God.
9 aside. Okay, now I know what to do. I know where to go on the page. That's what I'm getting lost. That's what it is. So Martinville is taking on Delisle on Saturday at 1 p.m. And then also in 5A 12 aside football, you have, oh my gosh, come on. It's just the brackets all the way at the bottom of the page. And then the link that I have to go back up to is all the way. I should have had it opened already.
They're all PDFs and like you're going to
Weyburn's taking on Belgoni on Friday at 6 p.m. So it'll be a night game, real cold night game. Mm-hmm. So that should be a good one. And then last but not least, in 6A 12 aside football, it's I know a Saskatoon and Regina school. It's Regina Miller taking on Saskatoon Holy Cross. So that should be a good one coming up on Saturday at 1 p.m. So the high school football season is going to be wrapping up. Best of luck to all the teams, and good luck to all the players that are graduating this year, because this might be the last football you ever play. I remember when I was there. It's a sad moment, yet it's something that you will look back on for the rest of your life, and you will not regret any second of time that you've put into the sport at all. You'll always talk about it with your kids, grandkids, friends, any other family members or friends that you have. It's something that you'll hold on to forever. So yeah, enjoy it, make the most of it. Because I know the pandemic really ruined a lot of stuff for those kids. So yeah, make the most of it. Don't take it for granted.
This is aside from the point we should have had. Imagine having a college football team at WABC. What fun would that have been?
Oh my God! Let's take on the Huskies, baby. Let's go.
Good luck to all those guys. And speaking of football, junior football, this is the biggest game that these two clubs have played in for a while, obviously probably since the last time they played in the final, but the Hilltops and the Regina Thunder will be playing, I think it's this weekend, the PFC Championship. So Regina obviously knocked off Saskatoon with that huge winning streak that they were on, but you know what? Anything can happen when the football flies, right? Also, shout out to Riley Schick, one of my cousins. He was named an all-star. So, yes, all-star. You make our family proud more than me. Brady says stupid things on the internet. But yes, also this weekend, the men's are back in action. They're playing the Trinity Western Spartans. That's the U of S men's hockey team led by Mike Babcock and Gordy Ballhorn. So Trinity Western actually has a lot of Saskatchewan boys in it. Even though they are in Langley, BC. So you got Isaac LaBelle, Cade McMillan, just going through like there are a lot of players on this list that are from Saskatchewan. Colby Johnson, Jarrett Penner, Aiden Steinke. He was actually the captain of Melville back in the day. But yeah, just loaded up with Sasky boys. So it's going to be nice seeing everyone kind of come out from both ends of the rink and, watch these two teams battle it out. So both games are at 7:00 at Merlis Belcher Place on Friday and Saturday. And if you come, you have one thing that you cannot do if you show up to those games and are listening to the Lang LeBlanc podcast, and that is complain about the PA announcing. So, but yeah, we'll go right over to the LLP in the community segment, and this is going to kind of wrap things up just because we are kind of strapped for time, and the baby needs to sleep.
So do I.
So LLP in the community, the radiothon for the Jim Pattison Children's Hospital. Avery, take it away.
So the Jim Pattison Children's Hospital, by the time you're listening to this, is over. It took place the 9th and the 10th. And as of Wednesday, when I head into work, we're going to be wrapping it up. Reader and I have been having a blast doing that. And that doesn't mean that they're still not taking donations. You can pitch in your donations by just heading to the website at pattesonchildrens.ca and smacking the donate button in the top right corner. They'll gladly take whatever you got. And yeah, every year I know that this causes waves in media all over the place. It's really heartwarming to see these donations roll in. I know as of the time that I was last in, it was around 60,000, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not sure where they're sitting right now. So yeah, hopefully that number continues to grow as of the last time I heard of it. I'm sure it'll get well into the 100,000s, and it's only going to get bigger and bigger as we move forward. And I know that this place holds a pretty darn close spot in your heart. Hey, Brady.
Yeah, it does. Didn't have to pay rent there, but spent a few days there in October. And yeah, it obviously changed our lives, and it just hats off again. By the time we are running this, I will already have a written piece about it. Kind of not really begging you to donate, but begging you to donate, because, like, man, every day just reflecting, it's crazier and crazier. Just kind of what we went through and how helpful they were and everything. And yeah, you never realize just how important the Jim Pattison Children's Hospital and the NICU staff, all that is, until you're directly affected by it. And yeah, just again, hats off to everyone involved there. And if you do have time to donate, or if you want to donate now, please do. Avery and I are kind of brainstorming and trying to figure out ways of possibly also making something out of this and getting people to donate. So we might have some more announcements along the lines of in the next few weeks, month or so. So yeah, it definitely holds a very important place in our hearts. And yeah, if you guys can donate, please do. But yeah, that kind of wraps it up for me. Avery, it's time for you to wrap everything up. Episode 45. 45.
Alrighty, so hit us up on our social medias, Facebook and LinkedIn, the Lang LeBlanc Podcast. And if you listen to last week's podcast with New Kids on Your Mom, you'll know that they hit us up on our socials. So if you want to do an interview in regards to something you got going on, or you just want to say hello, feel free to do so. You can also find us on Instagram at Lang LeBlanc Podcast, Twitter at Lang LeBlanc Pod, and TikTok at Lang LeBlanc Podcast. Be sure to give us a listen on wherever you get your podcasts. That includes Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean. I could go on and on and on and on. The list would never end. But wherever you do listen to them, leave us a subscribe and a rating as well. Helps us a ton. And you can leave us an email at langleblanclive@gmail.com. Our website is langleblancpodcast.com. You can also listen to our websites there and look at any written content that we got going on there, which I do the Rough Rider write-up, and Brady does his own column. His what's it called again? It's been a while.
Truly Saskatchewan.
Truly
Sorry, it has been. We'll dust it off. Sorry, I was a little bit busy.
Hey,
let's do all this fun new shit and then just have, the craziest month of my life. So, but yeah, thanks again to everyone for listening. Thank you to Avery for sticking it for 45 episodes. Oh, also, sorry, I cut you off. Our Twitters,
individual Twitters,
in the bottom. Brady Lang SK. Ooh, I was doing good until I moved there. But we're also on YouTube, so if you don't see it, Brady Lang SK, Airways in the Aves. Airwaves Aves with a Z at the end. Thank you guys so much for listening. Like I said, thank you to Avery for sticking it out, and thank you to Jamie Neugebauer, Nugsy, for coming on and being our latest friend of the podcast. Rory, we're still waiting, but yes, thank you guys, and we will see you for episode 46 in about a week.
Farewell.
Bye. We're gonna put a blooper at the end of this. Yeah, it's gonna be the baby coming in. Sorry, the baby peed.
Oh, needs a diaper.
Good job, Avery. Yes, babies need diapers.
Oh,
he's angry. Yeah, I think we're still recording this, so it's okay. It's just, ambiance thing.